Constellation Training 2018-19, 6th weekend, Sunday, February 3rd, afternoon session 2. 3. Afternoon session 3.
Okay. There was one thing also I forgot I wanted to mention about this constellation that was important, and then we'll do our last little ritual and do some final device research. So there's some words that that are very classic Bert Hellinger constellation words, healing sentences, that I don't use a ton, but I do like them. I just don't find myself using them a lot, that I ended up using spontaneously here. So I said various variations, that's redundant, on these sentences towards the end of this constellation. I take you fully as you are. I take you as my mother. You are the right mother for me. These are very powerful sentences. And they're often sentences that your clients are not ready for, because they're dealing with complex relationships with their parents, the experience of feeling violated by their parents or abused by their parents, or really desperately needing their parents to be different than they were. And so for a lot of them, there's a couple of things that can and perhaps should happen. One is acknowledgement of, their lacks as a parent. And when I say lacks, I don't mean that sometimes they were late picking you up at school. I mean severe things like, physical violence or sexual violence or emotional abuse, that sort of stuff. So these kinds of sentences are usually not felt as very yummy in those situations. And what you need to focus more in on is finding some way for the parent to be able to say, I could not give you everything that you needed. What I could give, I did, or things like that, right? I acknowledge that I injured you, stuff like that. And so these kind of sentences would not be appropriate. Also, there's a secondary version, which is a bit of it happened today with Maria Elena's, but which is that a parent that was limited in certain kinds of ways in the constellation may show up as genuinely different in a way that the client can also receive. Like, oh, she's being more nurturing towards me than she was in real life. Or she's sorry about what happened in a way she was not in real life. Or, things like that. So you can actually have an experience of a parent in the constellation being different than they were in real life, but it still feels true to the client. And they can leave with a different image in their heart of their parent. And that also feels good. That's not always available, but sometimes that's what's going on. Like, oh, I see now that my mom tried as hard as she could, and deep down she really loved me. That's, so something's changed in their inner image of their parent. Ultimately, though, in some ways, what we're looking for each one of us is to be able to take our parents as they are. And what that means is that, even if they're the most horrible people on the planet, those are the ones from whom we got our lives. We can get them from no one else. And so I take you as my mother, as my father. You are the right mother or father for me. Not because that makes me like get up and dance, but because without you, I'm not here, and I'm glad I'm here. Right? That meaning. The experience I was having as Maria Elena in the Constellation was once the judgment, the feeling of being judged was dropped, and that happened immediately and spontaneously, right? Jeff didn't have to do anything to get Maria Elena's mother to go, I feel guilty about that. It just happened. As soon as it was named, the bottom dropped out of it. So as soon as that was done, as Maria Elena, I was totally on board with taking her exactly as she was. When she was over there saying, I'd like to be different, I can't be close because I should do something different or be something different, it was this really beautiful sense of, I don't need you to be any different. I don't need you to improve. I take you as my mother as you are, implicitly imperfections intact. Now that I don't feel judged, that's kind of all I needed. I take you as my mother as you are. That's the key to full living. When we can authentically get to that place in our own personal growth, around being able to take our parents as they are, as they were. Now, please understand, this is not something we ask the 4-year-old to do, right? This is what gets confusing for people, right? Because that's what they're feeling, is the fear and upset and need of a 4-year-old. And so it feels like they're being asked to consider to put themselves in danger, to put themselves in a place of heartbreak, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not what we're doing. I don't have the book next to me right now, but there's a great quote from Love's Hidden Symmetry around what we're doing is that, not with the eyes and heart of a child, but with the eyes and heart of an adult, we take our parents as they are and were, right? Because once we can fully take that life in, right, then we can, be small in your family, to be big in your life, then you can do the stuff you want to do, whatever it is, right? So I just wanted to underline these sentences. You don't hear me say them much because very frequently we really are dealing with clients who are very new to a lot of this stuff. And it's just, they're just not ready for these sentences, yeah? But you'll sometimes hear it from more advanced clients who have done a bunch of work, or some clients who come with a lot of work they've like preloaded with other work. Certainly in this space, it's something we can start to contemplate with each other because of the work that we've done. Yeah, and I want to make sure it's in your quiver, because I don't want you to hold back from offering these sentences if and when the client's ready for them, because they're really healing sentences. Yeah. So you're treating your client like spun glass. I wouldn't, and they're ready to say this, but they don't know how. And they need you to help them say them. Yeah. And then it's the ongoing discernment of where is your client. And the real sense is, part of the way I learned this was saying, Maria Elena, will you please say you are the right mother for me? And the client looks like she wants to punch me in the face. And I'll say, no, let's never mind. Let's find something else, right? Or they try it, but you can tell they're just being compliant with me, and that they're not actually feeling it. Yeah. Is this helpful for people, just for me to have pulled that out? I had a very significant breakthrough with this with my father in Australia, basically, around realizing, and some part of me is waiting for my father to be different and to show up as different for me in my heart. And I just finally hit this place at age 54 where it really is time for me to take my father as he was. It's pretty big business for me. Right? Yeah.
Is it just a semantic artifact from translation that I take you rather than I accept you?
No, it is not a semantic thing. Take is a critical word. This is why you can't use it until people are ready, right? But, the balance of giving and taking. The baby doesn't accept the breast. The baby grabs and takes the breast, right? Why? Because the survival instinct is to grab and take, right? It's to take food, to hold on to the parent, to to cry and insist on being taken care of. Babies are not accepting machines; they're taking machines. And that's part of who we are. If we can't take life, it's not just accept life or receive life. That's the other word that people do is I will give and receive. No, it's take. So that word is actually pretty important. There's two sort of horrible states in life. People you don't want to be in relationship with. People who are always taking, that's kind of horrible. And people who are never taking. They are both really miserable people to be in relationship with. Because if you have a partner who never takes, then you're going to be the only one who's taking in the relationship, and that feels bad. You want to be able to give sometimes, yeah, right? Because we got to take, and if you don't take, then you're kind of underempowered in life. It was basically one of Jan Jakob Stamm's very strong messages to me in my constellations back in Australia was, Leslie, you don't take. Sorry. Oh, I don't think that's the right response. So I've been really chewing on that taking business and how it's different. For a lot of us, taking got associated with perpetration and violation, right? There's a whole lot of reasons how that can happen. Our mother can be sick, and so taking really was hard for them, so we stopped doing it. Or we had a parent who blamed us whenever we took, or, there are different reasons why taking can get associated with perpetrating. And getting that unraveled is a big issue for many of us in our adulthood, so that we can find a way to recognize that taking is actually part of a very respectful peer relationship of give and take, and that taking is part of actually being a good, generous person, as well as giving. We need to take. Don't start a business if you can't take. That was another thing Jan Jakob said, that entrepreneurs need to be able to take in service of their vision. So anyway, that's kind of cool little last minute tangent we got into, reminding us about taking. So is that helpful for clarifying that? And I do understand Americans have a lot of discomfort with that word taking. We have a lot, and maybe other languages do as well. My guess is it has some of the same impact in German, because he doesn't tend to be Bert Hellinger tends to be a little confrontational. He wants to have a little push in these things. So I don't know what words he's using here. You'd have to listen to the videos. But he's not saying receive and he's not saying accept. That's for sure. Whatever versions of that are in German.
The literal translation for take would be nehmen. Ich nehme etwas.
Ich nehme, yeah.
Yeah. And you would be able to grammatically apply this to the sentence method. Ich nehme dich als meinen Vater.
Yeah. Yeah. My guess is that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I doubt it's, I mean, for instance, I bet the idea of taking lands very well for people from a lot of Asian cultures, where there's a whole lot about not, about
impolite to take.
Yeah, around that. So it's not just an American thing. The other thing is that on the other side, it's also, sort of, we've got a weird mythology around, being colonial and taking things just because you can, the power movement of it. Right? And we don't like that. I mean, us nice Americans don't like that. Right. Okay. So what I want to do for a very quick last little ritual is I want us to repeat the support ritual. Okay. So you got a bunch of cards. Here, everyone take one of these colored ones. Find a spot for yourself in the room. Stand up, find a spot. You can kind of have a comfortable place, a little bit of room around you, and place in front of you the red coaster to represent a Constellation client. So you want to be, have them over there and me, and you're going to need a little bit more room there. At least turn yourself 45 degrees. There you go, just so you have a little bit of room, and then move the thing just a little bit so there's room around it. There you go. And again, you're going to need to step away a little bit. So you have at least 3 or so feet between you and your client. And imagine that we have 4 more people in the room who can represent your client and look at your client standing in front of you, not at the coaster, but into their eyes. Anyway, just take a spot. Don't step on it, step away from it. So you are yourself. You're going to need room behind you for your stuff, and you're going to need room behind your client for your stuff. And again, can you take it as at least a step away? Give yourself a little bit of room. There you go. Excellent. So you're looking at somebody. Yeah? You're looking at your Constellation client. And just notice how it feels. You're doing ordinary representing 101. Are you comfortable? Are you antsy? Are you confused? Just notice what you're experiencing. I'm going to give everybody actually one more of these. Put that for yourself. Okay, just for you. You can put that down underneath you, Jeff. Because what I want you to do now is one extra step, which is go ahead and step on the client looking at you. Okay? So switch positions and notice what it feels like from the client's point of view, this situation right now. And then go back to you once you feel like you've gotten a sense of what it feels like. Okay. Now, you get your little cards. Take one and put it behind you to represent your ancestors. And just notice how that feels. Now, to be in this relationship with your client, with your ancestors behind you. And then once more, go over to being the client and see what it feels like to the client to be in relationship with you, who's now in relationship with your ancestors. And just see if anything's changing. And then go back to you when you feel like you have a sense of that. And now you can take your time a little bit. You can use, 3 or 5 or 6 of the cards that you have. You should have enough to represent things in your life that support you. It can be particular people, it can be your beliefs, it can be your teaching lineages, it can be your kitty, it can be your gardening, whatever. And just start, I'm going to say, these are my constellation colleagues. So just as an example. And so start placing them in a half circle around you, to your right, left, and behind you. And be intentional. Know what each one represents. And when you feel like you've represented that pretty well, feel free to just stand there and notice what, if anything, feels different to you about this interaction with your constellation client.
I don't know if I'm going to remember.
Oh, you don't need to, well, just as long as you place it with intention,
Okay.
you don't need to remember later on. And then when you feel like you've had a sense of that, go ahead once again, step on the client and see if it's different for the client with you being this supported. Okay, and when you feel like you have a sense of that, you can go back to yourself. And then you should still have plenty of cards. And what you're going to start to do now is provide a similar set of resources for your client. Things that you imagine your average client might have. Certainly they'll have ancestors, so please place those. But anything else you think they might have, just put some in a half circle around them. And when you're ready, you can go back to you. Just notice how it feels like this way to you. And when you have a sense of that, you can go ahead and see what this is all like again from the client's point of view. Now that both of you are really resourced. Yeah, when you feel like you have a sense of that, you can come back to yourself. When you're ready. And my impression, given what I've heard from all three of you over the last 6 months or so, is that this is something you all intend to do. Perhaps already have been doing and will be doing quite spontaneously with friends and family and just maybe more formally down the road. So just notice your future self having this experience. And notice, my guess is that this feels better than the first one when it was just you and the client. Like something along the lines of, I can do this, something like that. I look forward to this. And then just make a little inner commitment, just feel what it's like, and to have some part of you, like it's never not like this. You're always supported and they're always supported. The difference is not whether you are or you aren't, but whether you're living like you both are. Are you living like you're a supported person? Are you living like your clients are supported people? Or are you living like you're in on it on your own? And are you living like your clients are in on it on their own? And just a little inner commitment to kind of continue to grow into this being your default, both walking through life and as you engage with clients. And when you forget, or some of it kind of life hits you a little hard and you get a little rattled, to do what you can to reconnect with this reality, both because it's better for you and in a funny way it's a professional obligation. Right? It makes you a better practitioner when you feel both of these things. So before we sit down, does anyone from here want to share what they're noticing about this experience?
I noticed that with every layer of support added, I felt more relaxed or more at ease. So when it was just the two of us, it felt all like, oh, it's okay, but a little shaky, almost felt a little stressed. And then when they came in, got more balanced, and that wasn't actually.
Anyone else want to share a little bit about this?
Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking at my client just with myself here, I was noticing him. I don't know if for some reason it was him, very sad and almost diminished.
Diminished?
Uh-huh. And I was insecure about how to approach. And then when I was there, I saw me as a giant here. So he was kind of, overwhelmed,
Intimidated, yeah.
intimidated. And then as I put this protection here, I felt very comfortable and very protected. And when I put his in there, um, I didn't see him as sad or diminished, and I saw giants here, kind of covering me from his point of view. But as soon as I put more cards, everything was level.
Mm.
Everything was eye to eye. It was very interesting.
And Jeff, anything from you that you want to share?
Just felt fuller. The client's resources down and kind of even this out.
Right. And I felt pretty much everything that you guys felt. The one little thing that was different for me that I found interesting was that before I included any of the support, I felt kind of like, this is hard. And then over there on the client side, it was very interesting. In the client role, without any support for either of us, I was mad. I got really angry at Leslie and everything. And as soon as I even added just the ancestors, my ancestors, that anger went away and it just got stronger and more positive through the whole process. So there's something about, for me, when I walk through life as if I don't have support or as if they don't have support,
Somebody gets pissed off.
people get pissed off. Like, hey. Okay. So, good enough? Okay, pick up the cards. You can return all of this to me because I can reuse all of that.
I was thinking in Spanish, if I do this, te tomo como eres, it's hard. Very hard.
So what would the sentence, I take you fully as you are, what would that be?
Te tomo
Tomo, yeah.
totalmente como eres.
Yeah.
El tomo is like,
Grab
it's
a
like
cake.
possessive.
Yeah. But it's also used tomar for like, take the glass of water or something as well. Yeah.
Pero tiene otro connotación. Oh, I'm sorry. There is another connotation to it. I mean, it's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and it leaks in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you say it to a person, te tomo, it's a little difficult.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's a little difficult. It's perfect. Okay, so here we are. At the end.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's just go around a little bit in the way of appreciations for each other, for yourselves, and just take a moment and review the 6 months. And I don't mean you're going to be able to do that in any specificity, right? But orders of love and belonging and innocence and guilt and representing and group management and support and trauma. Um,
Healing.
guilt. To be alive is to be guilty. Remember that one?
Lots of mothers and fathers.
Lots of mothers and fathers and ancestors and war. A lot of time spent in war. A lot of time spent looking at the relationships between our parents for some of us and the impact for us. And also sharing our own desires for ourselves with each other, the things that feel incomplete that we would like to have more of or that don't feel quite right, and perhaps some healing along the way. So take a moment and just right now, somewhat arbitrarily, what is your takeaway? You'll probably be driving home and going, oh, damn, I should have said. But for now.
What is my take? So to wrap this up in one sentence, one statement, but challenge. Not undoable, but challenge.
Be a little more specific with the challenging.
Now to put my experience, I sense that it's quite complex. So to wrap this all up and put this in one tiny sentence,
Oh,
right, that's the challenging part. So
right.
the takeaway is not challenge.
Oh, okay.
It's just more like putting it into words.
Yeah.
I feel I've been growing quite a bit in these 6 months. I got a lot more clarity about certain issues. I really, really enjoy having realized through this the importance of connecting, being with my ancestors, and because I come from a family where there isn't much value in staying connected.
Right. And a culture.
Yeah. So that part is quite helpful. And yeah, and I'm glad I got to a point at the end of the 6 months where I feel like I need more experience and maybe more training, and for sure, but I can see myself doing this.
Yeah.
Still some hiccups, certain situations where you look at the setup of representatives and you think, where am I going from here? What do I do now? But I'm more comfortable with this, being in this place than I was before.
Yeah. And remembering that that's actually in many ways, the most important step.
Yes, yes.
It's the moment where the field can give you something that you hadn't expected.
Yeah. Profound is probably the best word for me.
Yeah. I just want to sort of reflect back that I was very moved by how much you allowed some age-old preceding you, essentially terror, to be fully included and seen and honored, so that you could let it go and give it back to the ones to whom it belongs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, kudos. Mm. We'll do the usual.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So words came to mind, a lot of healing. I received a lot of healing, updating, and I feel at peace. So I feel a lot of appreciation. And just have to remember that I have my support system.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for this experience. and a confidence that I can do. You know, confidence that I can do this. I have a lot to learn, more to learn, to practice, but it's a knowing that yeah, I can do this. Yeah. Humble, I can do this.
Yeah. Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, and if I said to Katerina, part of what she had the courage to do was bring in, this terror. You had the courage to bring in a lot of grief. Yeah. So it could be included and have a good place. And that you could have the experience of it belongs. But it also doesn't have to be everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, my first reaction, has it really been 6 months?
I think it's only been 5. Well, it's been September. So, yeah.
Hard to be really specific. I thought I think this last bit about the projection and separating and all that feels like one of the more important things, out of a bunch of important things. I think for me anyway, I need to just go out and play with it.
So I want to say to all 3 of you, I mean, I don't have any certification, and I'll send you all, certificates of participation in hours via email this week. But I feel really comfortable with all 3 of you going out and facilitating. Understanding your limits and all that sort of stuff. But I've had classes where 1 or 2 people, I'm like, oh, they're not ready. They're lovely. They've learned a lot, but they're not ready. That some key pieces are missing. For me, the key pieces are orders of love, being able to work with the field and representatives, being able to, the keyest one for me is being able to think systemically. So that when someone's talking to you about their depression or their spiritual challenge or their problem with their kid or their rage at President Trump or whatever it might be that they want help with, that you don't just hear what they're saying and you don't fall into the trance that it's only just about that thing, and that you're not falling into psychodynamic interpretations, but you're asking the larger systemic questions. Yeah. And that still takes some practice. I've gotten to the point where it's more or less automatic for me, at least when I'm in the field, intentionally. But every day we go back to homes and communities and workplaces that don't think that way. And, we go to a doctor's office, they're not thinking systemically. We go to our kids' school, they're not thinking systemically. We're interacting with our loved ones who are mad at us because of that thing we did, and we're not thinking systemically, right? We engage in arguments about politics and we're not thinking systemically. So it takes a little extra oomph. And that's why the next thing really, 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 really is practice, practice, practice. So do find people to do this with if you're not ready to be paid, if you feel that way about it. I think both of you guys reported this, I don't know if you're doing some of this as well, that you just talking it up with people, and at some level they're going, so will you constellate something for me? Or you say, well, there's a thing, I can like do this constellation thing. Practice, practice, practice. And the more you practice, and the more you have the experience of noticing that that doorway is not acting like a doorway, it's acting like a person. It starts to come second nature more and more and more that you do it. The other thing, of course, is that please continue to learn from other people. The more you can continue to watch different varieties of people do the work, make use of the meetup and the Facebook group to watch other people in the Bay Area. That's the low-hanging fruit. That's often inexpensive and available. Or you'll never make the time for this, but you have to put it in as the intensive, because then you'll make yourself do it because you've spent the money and you've set aside the time. However you do it, to the degree that I've reached any degree of mastery, it's because I've watched so many amazing different people do so many different kinds of wonderful constellations and terrible failures, and learn from it all. So really, that just amps your learning so much. So think about that in your planning for 2019 and 2020. Some of the local events. If you started to hear some names that have, like if Francesca Mason Boring intrigues you, she's easy to work with. She's just up in Seattle. She does stuff in LA. It's not that hard to work with her. Jane Peterson in Portland. If Stefan Hausner comes to the area, stay on the Facebook groups of Family and Systemic Constellations, or stay in contact with me. And feel free to say, Leslie, what's coming up? What's got you excited? Who do you think I should work with next? I'm interested in issue A, B, or C. And I'll say, oh, if you're interested in organizations, you should work. There's an opportunity, this one. Or you want to work with chronic illness, Stefan is coming to the area. You want to work more shamanically, this is a person you ought to look up. If you're finding yourself interested, and the problem is there's no one clearinghouse for all this information. So staying connected to the network of people, and feel free to stay in contact with me and ask, and I will let you know. In the meantime, there's the intensive. The last thing I just kind of want to send you off with is constellating can be really challenging.
Okay.
It can be really, it can be a little wearing. If you're not suited up with your support, it can get hard, and you open yourself up to fairly intense energies and people's upsets and hurts and traumas and losses, and you don't always do it perfectly, so you go home and you're like, that was kind of meh, all that sort of stuff. And then there are moments like the one, several this weekend, but I'll just sort of end with when we ended Maria Elena's. I was just so grateful to the field for revealing the sweet thing between Maria Elena and her mother, and allowing that to come to some conclusion for her. And the field is filled with these kinds of moments. When the whole family finally bows to the Holocaust dead, where the African American finally sees the strength of his Black ancestors, or the children who died finally get seen and acknowledged and put to rest. When I have these moments, I couldn't feel luckier. And it feels like such an honor, and I get so much from it. So that's what I'm mostly left with this evening, is not the gird up your loins. This is hard. You're going to take your licks. There's some of that, but when it's sweet, it is so sweet. It's so, so sweet. And I send you off with that. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Let's remember Lily. Go team. And some of you I'm going to see real soon.
Yes.
Okay? Or end of March. Or and I'm going to see you either at the intensive or at the training.
Yes.
And don't feel pressured. Let's communicate tomorrow and figure out if, give you a few more days to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Off with you.
Thank you.